This is the story of a young nurse who walked into room 247, thinking it was just another shift, another patient, another day at the hospital. What she discovered there would test everything she believed about compassion, duty, and the promises we make to strangers who become something more. She thought she was simply doing her job, following protocol, keeping patients comfortable. But sometimes life has other plans. Sometimes a single conversation changes the course of two lives forever. Stay with me, because this true story will touch your heart in ways you never expected. And if you love real stories about human connection and the power of keeping promises, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Let's begin. Rachel Martinez had been working as a registered nurse at St. Mary's Medical Center for 3 years. At 26, she had already seen more pain, hope, and heartbreak than most people witness in a lifetime. Her colleagues respected her gentle touch with patients and her ability to stay calm during the most stressful moments. Rachel never rushed through her rounds. She listened when patients needed to talk, held hands when families said goodbye, and somehow always found the right words when there were no good words to say. The morning of October 15th started like any other. Rachel clocked in at 7, grabbed her assignment sheet, and reviewed the patient list. Room 247 had a new admission. A 68-year-old man named Thomas Bennett who had been transferred from intensive care. The notes were brief. Advanced lung cancer, stage 4, prognosis poor. Comfort measures only. Rachel had cared for hundreds of terminal patients, but something about this case felt different before she even met him. When she knocked gently on the door to room 247, a quiet voice called out, "Come in." Rachel entered to find a thin, grey-haired man sitting up in bed, fully alert despite his condition. His eyes were clear blue, kind, and surprisingly bright for someone so close to the end. What struck her immediately wasn't his illness, but his smile. It was genuine, warm, the kind of smile that made you feel like you mattered. "You must be my new nurse," Thomas said, extending a slightly shaky hand. "I'm Tom. Thank you for taking care of me." His voice carried traces of a southern accent, soft and polite. Rachel shook his hand, noticing how carefully he spoke, as if each word required effort he was willing to spend. "I'm Rachel. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Bennett. How are you feeling this morning?" She began her routine assessment, checking his vital signs while they talked. His breathing was labored but steady. His pulse was weak but regular. The numbers told the story his cheerful demeanor tried to hide. "Please call me Tom. And I'm feeling grateful, actually." He paused to catch his breath. "Grateful to be here, grateful for another day, grateful for nurses like you who choose to spend their time with people like me." Rachel had heard many patients try to stay positive in the face of terminal illness, but Tom's gratitude felt authentic. Over the next few days, she learned more about the man in room 247. He had been a high school history teacher for 42 years. He never married, never had children of his own, but he spoke lovingly about his students as if they were his family. He had coached the debate team, sponsored the chess club, and somehow remembered the names and stories of thousands of young people he had taught over the decades. "You know what I loved most about teaching?" Tom asked during one of Rachel's visits. She was adjusting his pillows, but she paused to listen. It wasn't the subject matter, though they were capable of more than they thought. Some I did love history. It was watching kids discover of them came into my classroom believing they weren't smart enough, weren't good enough. By the time they left, they knew better. Rachel found herself spending extra time in room 247. During her breaks, she would stop by to check on Tom, not because he needed medical attention, but because their conversations had become the highlight of her shifts. He asked about her life, her dreams, her family. He listened with the same attention he had probably given his students for 4 decades. "Do you have children, Rachel?" Tom asked one afternoon. She was reviewing his medication schedule, but his question made her look up. "Not yet," she replied. "My husband and I have been trying for 2 years, but it hasn't happened." She rarely shared personal information with patients, but something about Tom made her feel safe opening up. "I always wanted children," Tom said quietly. "I came close to marriage once, when I was young. But life took us in different directions. I used to think I missed out on something important. Now I realize I got to be part of thousands of young lives instead. Maybe that was better." As the days passed, Tom's condition slowly deteriorated. His breathing became more difficult. He needed oxygen more frequently. His appetite disappeared almost entirely. But his spirit remained strong, and his concern for others never wavered. He asked about Rachel's other patients, worried about the elderly woman in room 245 who had no visitors, and always thanked every member of the hospital staff who entered his room. One evening, Rachel was finishing her shift when Tom's call light came on. She hurried to his room, expecting a medical issue. Instead, she found him sitting up, looking more serious than she had ever seen him. "Rachel, I need to ask you something important," he said. "Could you sit down for a moment?" She pulled the bedside chair closer to his bed and sat down. The room felt different, heavier somehow. Outside the window, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the floor. "The doctors told me I probably have a week, maybe less," Tom began. "I've made peace with that. I've had a good life, better than I deserved. But there's something I need to do before I go, and I can't do it alone." Rachel leaned forward, giving him her full attention. In her years as a nurse, she had helped patients with many final requests. Some wanted to call estranged family members. Others wanted to donate organs or write letters to loved ones. She had learned that these last wishes were sacred, deserving of respect and care. "What do you need, Tom?" she asked gently. Tom reached into the drawer of his bedside table and pulled out an old leather journal, worn from years of handling. He held it carefully, as if it contained something precious. "This journal has been with me for 30 years, he said. "Inside are letters I wrote to every student who made a difference in my life. Some of them struggled with confidence, others with family problems, some with academic challenges. I wrote to tell them how proud I am of the adults they became, how much they meant to me, how they changed my life by being in my classroom." He opened the journal to show Rachel pages filled with neat handwriting, each entry dated and addressed to a specific person. "There are over 200 letters in here," Tom continued. "I always planned to send them someday, but someday never came. Now it's too late for me to do it myself." Rachel understood immediately what he was asking, but the magnitude of it overwhelmed her. "Tom, that's a beautiful gift you've created. But I'm not sure I'm the right person to help with something so personal." "You're exactly the right person," Tom said with conviction. "You've shown me more kindness in these few weeks than I had any right to expect. You listen, you care, you see people for who they really are. These letters need to reach the people they were written for, and I trust you to make sure they do." The weight of his request settled over Rachel like a blanket. This wasn't just about mailing letters. This was about honoring a dying man's lifetime of dedication to others, about ensuring his final act of love reached the people who needed to hear it. "I'll need their addresses," Rachel said finally. "Some of them might have moved, gotten married, changed names." Tom's face lit up with relief and gratitude. "I've been working on that for months. I hired a private investigator to help me track down as many as possible. I have current addresses for most of them." Rachel felt her heart racing as she looked at the worn journal in Tom's hands. The responsibility he was asking her to accept felt enormous. These weren't just letters. They were a lifetime of memories, connections, and love distilled into words meant for specific people who had no idea they existed. "Tom, This is incredible, she whispered, gently touching the leather cover. But what if some of them don't want to hear from you? What if it brings up painful memories from high school? Tom's eyes crinkled with understanding. I thought about that for years. That's why I never sent them before. But Rachel, I realized something lying in this bed. We spend so much time worrying about bothering people that we forget how powerful it can be to know you mattered to someone. These young people, they're adults now with their own struggles, their own doubts. Maybe hearing that their old teacher remembered them, believed in them, will come at exactly the moment they need it most. He opened the journal to a random page and began reading in his soft voice. Dear Jennifer Walsh, I still remember the day you stood up in class and defended the Bill of Rights with such passion that even the toughest kids stopped talking and listened. You were 16 and already had the heart of someone who would change the world. I hope you found your way into law or politics, or whatever field lets you keep fighting for what's right. Rachel felt tears forming in her eyes. Do you remember all of them this clearly? Every single one, Tom replied. That's what happens when you pay attention to people. They stay with you forever. He turned to another page. Dear Marcus Thompson, you came to my class angry at the world, and I don't blame you. But you channeled that anger into the most brilliant essays about social justice I ever read. You made me see history through different eyes, and I became a better teacher because of you. She could see how much energy it took for Tom to read aloud, but his voice never wavered. Each letter was filled with specific memories, encouragement, and genuine affection. Rachel began to understand that this wasn't just Tom's final wish, it was his masterpiece. How long will it take me to send all of these? She asked, already knowing she was going to say yes. I don't want you to rush, Tom said. Some letters are going to people in this state. Others are spread across the country. I've organized them by location to make it easier. And Rachel, I don't expect you to pay for postage or spend your own money. I've set aside funds for that. He reached into the drawer again and pulled out an envelope thick with cash. This should cover everything, including your time. I know I'm asking a lot. Rachel shook her head. I won't take money for this, Tom, but I will make you a promise. Every letter in this journal will reach the person it was meant for, even if I have to hire investigators myself to find the ones who've moved. Tom's eyes filled with tears. You would do that for me? For people you've never met? I would do that for you, Rachel said firmly. Because in the short time I've known you, you've shown me what it means to really see people, to remember them, to care about their stories. If this is how you want to spend your final days, making sure people know they mattered to you, then I'm honored to help. Tom reached out and took her hand. His grip was weak but steady. There's something else, Rachel. Something I haven't told you about why this is so important to me. She waited patiently as he gathered his strength to continue. 3 months ago, I received a letter from a former student named David Chen. He found my address somehow and wrote to tell me he was going through a difficult divorce, struggling with depression, questioning everything about his life. But he said, remembering something I told him in class 15 years ago had helped him get through the darkest moments. He thanked me for believing in him when he couldn't believe in himself. Tom paused, his breathing labored but determined. That letter changed everything for me, Rachel. It made me realize I've been sitting on something precious. All these years, I worried about being presumptuous or intrusive. But David's letter showed me that sometimes people need to know they were seen, they were valued. They made a difference in someone else's life. Rachel squeezed his hand gently. So these letters aren't just your gift to them. They're your way you. Exactly. Tom, of passing forward what David gave to, smiled. And who knows? Maybe one of these letters will reach someone at exactly the moment they need to hear it most. Maybe someone is sitting somewhere right now, wondering if their life has meaning, if anyone remembers them, if they ever made a difference. These letters could be the answer to prayers they haven't even prayed yet. The room fell quiet, except for the steady beeping of Tom's monitors. Rachel looked out the window at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the darkness. Somewhere out there were teachers, lawyers, mechanics, parents, artists, and dreamers who had once sat in Tom Bennett's classroom. They had no idea that their old history teacher was dying, or that he had spent years writing them letters filled with memories and encouragement. "When do you want me to start?" Rachel asked. "Tonight, if you're willing," Tom replied. "I know that sounds urgent, but I can feel my time running short. And honestly, knowing these letters are on their way will give me more peace than any medication could." Rachel nodded. "I'll start tonight. But Tom, I want you to know something. Even if I can't reach every single person, even if some addresses are wrong or some people have passed away, your love for these students, your commitment to them, it won't be wasted. The fact that you wrote these letters, that you remembered them all, that matters." Tom's face softened with gratitude. "You have such a kind heart, Rachel. I hope you know that your patients are lucky to have you. You don't just take care of our bodies, you see our souls." As Rachel prepared to leave for the night, Tom handed her the journal and the envelope of money. "There's one more thing," he said. "In the back of the journal, there's a letter addressed to you." Rachel looked surprised. "To me? But we just met a few weeks ago." "Sometimes a few weeks is enough to know someone has changed your life," Tom said simply. "Don't read it now. Save it for after you've sent all the others. Consider it my thank you for giving an old teacher one last chance to reach his students." Rachel left the hospital that night, carrying more than just a leather journal and an envelope of money. She carried the weight of a promise that would touch hundreds of lives. At home, she spread the contents across her kitchen table. The journal fell open to reveal Tom's meticulous organization. Each letter was numbered, dated, and cross-referenced with a separate list of current addresses. Some entries had multiple addresses with notes like, "Try work address first," or "Sister confirmed this is current." She picked up the first letter at random. It was addressed to Maria Santos, now Maria Rodriguez, living in Phoenix. Tom had written about how Maria overcame her fear of public speaking to deliver a presentation about the civil rights movement that left the entire class in respectful silence. "You found your voice that day, Maria," the letter read. "I hope you never stopped using it to speak up for others." Rachel carefully placed the letter in an envelope, wrote out the address in her neat handwriting, and applied a stamp. One down, 199 to go. She worked until 2 in the morning, preparing the first batch of letters for local addresses. As she sealed each envelope, she imagined the moment when these former students would open their mailboxes and find an unexpected message from their past. The next morning at work, Rachel could barely concentrate on her other patients. She kept thinking about Tom's letters, about the people who would soon receive them. During her lunch break, she drove to the post office and mailed the first 20 letters. Standing at the mailbox, she whispered a small prayer that they would find their way to the right people. When she returned to room 247, Tom was awake and waiting for her. His breathing was more labored than the day before, but his eyes still held that familiar brightness. "How many did you send?" he asked immediately. 20 so far, all local addresses," Rachel replied, pulling up her chair. "Tom, reading those letters last night, I felt like I was getting to know your students. The way you remembered them, the specific moments you wrote about. It's beautiful." Dear viewers, Rachel spent the next 6 months fulfilling Tom's final wish, sending every single letter to its intended recipient. She received dozens of responses from grateful former students who said Tom's words came exactly when they needed to hear them most. Tom passed away peacefully 3 days after giving Rachel his journal. But his love reached across decades to touch hearts he never forgot. Sometimes the most powerful promises we make are to strangers who become family, and sometimes keeping those promises changes us more than we ever imagined. If this story moved you, Share it with someone who needs to know their life has meaning. Thank you for watching.